serves the Catholics of the district of Hai Yen. Father Hoa will give Mass here just as he does every Sunday. This and the church in Binh Hung are the only two still left. 7 churches Father built were all burned down by the communists, but now all of them are being rebuilt. The religious aspect in this story is not as significant today as it was when Father first settled Binh Hung with his small band of Christians. It was their unity of belief and faith in their priest which made their defense and then later their offense so determined. But today, Father Hoa is known far and wide in this area for his effective soldiers, for his ability to make himself and his goals understood, and for the respect held for him by the leaders of the numerous religious faiths in the area. All of these factors and others work together to provide for these children and these people a safer life today and a better future tomorrow. This is the marketplace for the district of Hai Yen, and here the way of life brought to the area by the villagers of Binh Hung tells its most positive story. The shops are filled with goods, busy with customers. There is a free economy here, and Mr. Lee is taking advantage of it to haggle with the butcher over the price of some meat Mrs. Lee has told him to bring home. Mr. Lee and his son and all of the soldiers of Binh Hung are paid 1,200 piastres a month for their soldierly duties. The pay comes from the government of South Vietnam, which classifies them as home guard and pays that wage. It amounts to about $16 a month. With a regular wage, and as is often the case with 2 or 3 members of a family drawing soldiers' pay, prosperity can and does develop to the point where the proprietor of a tailor shop can afford to hire 5 tailors and equip them with brand new sewing machines. After lunch with his friends, Mr. Lee and many others from all over the district gathered to attend an anti-communist rally. The event is being staged by the mayor of this village, which is the seat for the marketplace. Amongst the crowd are Viet Cong agents and communist sympathizers, but also in the crowd, Binh Hung soldiers working a secret service detail. They've been around the marketplace all day to learn if any incidents are planned by the communists. Just one example of the tremendous and effective network of intelligence Father Hoa draws from. It is in rallies such as this where the battle for Vietnam can be won, in the minds of the peasant. It has been said that 80% of the war is propaganda, 20% fighting, and the communists have a long head start in the propaganda file. But even the minds of this enemy can be changed, and Father Hoa has proven it. You're listening to one of the enemy who changed his mind. An intellectual, he was a teacher in a nearby village. He joined the Viet Cong for 9 months out of choice and necessity. And here he tells his fellow Vietnamese of the hopelessness of the communist way. The teacher's defiance and anger grows as he tells of witnessing the torture execution of 2 Buddhist priests. And then to convince one and all that he has deserted the enemy, he rips the Viet Cong flag apart and throws it into the dirt, vowing his allegiance to liberty and crying, "I have returned. Communism can take my body now, but never again can it take my soul." Because of his speech, the teacher is probably not alive today. But as Father Hoa puts it, the teacher was no longer a man in the middle. His heart had to cry out. It's late at night. Father Hoa is in his house planning an offensive which will be launched within a few hours. This is a typical scene. The strong man with a gentle face and manner, plotting the course of war late into the night. Father Hoa averages only 3 hours of sleep a night, says he can't sleep anymore, but yet the demands on his mind and body are constant. What is it that powers this man's drive? A hatred of communism, a belief that he can help in the fight against it, and a hope to someday, within his time, return to his beloved China. He fought for China during World War II when he left the priesthood to join the army. He went through a military school, became an officer, and led guerrillas against the Japanese. At war's end, he returned to the priesthood, but was imprisoned twice by the communists. Twice he escaped. Then came the flights from domination until finally at Binh Hung, the determination to defend and fight took hold. The dimensions of this man are broad and dynamic, and they show truest when he's talking to the villagers of Cao Dai Vam, or those who are still confused about who is right, Father Hoa or the Viet Cong, or when he's talking to his own people. To anyone who needs help or guidance, Father Hoa communicates with understanding and warmth, and then acts with determination and wisdom. In these crucial times, leadership like Father Hoa's is a priceless thing. It must be cultivated and refined in others, or we may fail the challenges we face. In the third room of Father Hoa's house is a radio room, supplied and developed by Bernie Yo's technical wizardry. It provides contact with all government military units in the province capital at Camau, 100 miles north, and direct and private radio communications to Bernie Yo's Saigon office. So when Father is called to Saigon, he can keep in constant touch with Binh Hung, even direct military operations from there. The planning for the offensive will continue throughout the night. This man who here guides the life or death of his people is the same man who's gone heavily into debt to support them. And then he borrows almost $100,000 to build a large parochial school in Saigon with 1,200 students, all learning Vietnamese, Chinese, and English, thanks to Father Hoa. At his side, Bullet and Jesse, Doberman pinchers given him by an admirer from Texas. It's late. The dogs can't keep their eyes open any longer, but their master works on. The next morning, a staff meeting in the village's main building. Captain Quay, assigned to Binh Hung by the government and Father Hoa's field commander, outlines the plans for attack. These are the men who lead the squads, platoons, and companies of Binh Hung's little army, who later in the day and night will fan out in the south area of the communists to encircle and ambush a nest of Viet Cong. Outside, village troops begin to muster. Prepared to stay in the field as long as necessary, the men are supplied with Binh Hung sea rations, fresh bread from the bakery. Before moving out, the troops are personally inspected by their commander-in-chief. The inspection is more informal than the usual rigid military ceremony. As Father Hoa walks through the ranks, checking every man's equipment, a range of moods is spanned, from joking to serious attention to a grenade launcher. 2.5 years ago, the original fighting force of Binh Hung had no uniforms, no shoes, few weapons. As the success of the Binh Hung villagers progressed, Go Zing Zim, the president of Vietnam, began to step up aid to the more and better weapons. As Father Hoa talks to his men before battle, Bernie Yo tells what he's saying.
The most important point is make something of yourself. You are a man. You're created for a purpose in this world. The world is temporary, but you have to make the best of it. Otherwise, you're just nothing, like dirt, like a grass. Is that what you want to be, or you want to be something worthwhile? Maybe not to be recorded in history, but at least to yourself, you know that your life has been a worthy one in this world.
When a Binh Hung soldier is killed, at the funeral feast, every man in the village gives the widow 1 piastre, about 1/10 of a cent. Most of the village's war widows have remarried. Those who have not and have wanted to stay are supported by Father. That is, if they can't support themselves. The troops begin their trek into Viet Cong territory. These are the hardest moments for Father Hoa, when he must stay behind and give Captain Quay the final field instructions, and then watch as the last of his men disappear into an agonizing silence which will last for hours or days. Ahead of Captain Quay and the main body of troops go the village commando forces in their sampans. They'll try to seek out any enemy ambushes before the main concentration of troops arrive. These are the toughest, most experienced guerrilla fighters in Southeast Asia, in probably the world. Their backgrounds and cultures are varied. Binh Hung has become a veritable Asian melting pot. Half of the villagers are Chinese. The remaining are Vietnamese, Cambodian, and from the mountain tribes of central Vietnam. Some of the Binh Hung soldiers are former juvenile delinquents. Father Hoa bailed them out of jail in Saigon. They now number some of his toughest young soldiers. The advance patrol moves into a critical area. Although danger is a way of life here, there are hundreds and thousands of men like these in Vietnam who are ready to face that danger. At the home where Father Hoa stays during his visits to Saigon, a handful of men can always be seen waiting outside, waiting to see Father Hoa or find out when he'll be in Saigon so they can sign up to fight. When a new recruit takes the Binh Hung Oath of Allegiance, he swears to defend the flag and the Republic of Vietnam, to protect its people, and never do harm or injustice to them, and to never turn on one another. If a recruit doesn't like the villagers soldiering, he can leave. There are many more in Saigon eager to take his place. And if the young soldier proves incorrigible, he's sent back home. This is an ambush war. Ambush, the favorite tactic of the guerrilla soldier. A Viet Cong grenade explodes in front of the Binh Hung soldiers. They respond by charging into the enemy. To fall back would be fatal. Behind, undoubtedly, an ambush rear guard. So the best avenue to safety is to fight through the frontal attack. A firefight ensues. Prisoners are taken. And then suddenly it's over. 15 Viet Cong dead, 2 prisoners taken. All of the Binh Hung patrol safe and accounted for. And this is the way it has gone for 2.5 years. In that time, 27 of Father Hoa's men have been killed. None of them have been captured. Best estimates indicate that 1,000 Viet Cong have been killed. 500 communist dead have been counted, but the guerrillas carry away their dead whenever possible. Thus, the toll is conservatively estimated at twice that number. More guerrillas on both sides will be killed before this war is finished. Numbers may make the difference in who will survive the ambushes, but not necessarily in who will win the war. Much of the war can be won in this manner. One man talking to others. This is a battle for the minds of men.
sáng, thiệt sáng. Nhưng mà quay ra ngoài này chúng tôi thấy dân cái đôi giặc.
These are people in a village friendly to Father Hoa and Binh Hung, a village within that 90 square mile safe perimeter. People who are whittling self-defense stakes for theirs and other villages' protection, helping in the common effort. People determined, ready to die if necessary to defend a way of life. But just a few months or years ago, these villagers were like most of the others in Southeast Asia, susceptible to the communist line, agreeable to supporting it because of fear or their belief in it. A few miles away on the heliport at Binh Hung, Captain Quay is talking to more villagers. But these are the villagers who took up arms for communism because someone talked or scared them into it. This is a brainwashing session, a regular practice for the captured Viet Cong held prisoner at Binh Hung. Captain Quay is telling the prisoners of the failure of the communist life in North Vietnam, of the exodus of 1 million refugees from the north, of the misery for those who stayed behind. And as the simple peasant-turned-killer listens, he weighs the evidence.
Để cho một cái nhóm người bán nước chỉ biết rằng muốn bán đất miền Nam này cho Đảng Cộng sản để thủ lợi, như đã trước kia tàn nhẫn ký vào cái hiệp ước Geneva và bán đất nửa miền Nam. Sở dĩ mấy anh em ngày hôm nay ở tại đây cũng vì là có cái đường lối.
Within 3 to 6 months after capture, Viet Cong prisoners are released from Binh Hung. Of the hundreds of these in the past 2.5 years, only 4 have been found fighting with the Viet Cong again. 5 are now soldiers of Binh Hung fighting for Father Hoa. The rest have gone back to their families and moved them out of the communist area into Father Hoa's district. The story here has been written by a man's leadership, the determination of his people, and the better life it has borne for others and themselves. This is a story which will have to be written again and again here in Southeast Asia, in South America, Africa, in all of the threatened world, if the challenge of our time is to be met. This is the story lived by the people of the village of Binh Hung, South Vietnam.